sports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the TKDS Sports Network. I'm Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington. Happy Tuesday. We were off yesterday. No Monday show yesterday because Wittenberg baseball was on the network, meaning we were booted off. I was at Carlton-Davidson Stadium calling a Tigers victory last night. So Wittenberg now on a 6-game winning streak and back above 500. They are 15-12. They got above 500 on Saturday for the first time since earlier in the year when they were 6-5. So congratulations to the Wittenberg Tigers, heading on to play a doubleheader tomorrow on the road and Saturday. So for those of you who are concerned, there will be, at least this week, there are no more overlapping periods. The show, unless anything crazy happens, the show should be going on Tuesday through Friday this week. But thank you guys we missed you guys yesterday. We certainly missed you guys. We missed doing the show. But thanks for waiting it out, sticking it out. We hope you enjoyed the Wittenberg baseball game on the TKDS Sports Network yesterday. But we're back here on Tuesday. And because we missed the Monday show, just like what we were talking about last week, it seems like whenever we miss a show and can't produce a show, that's when things go absolutely crazy. And certainly that was the case this weekend. There's a lot to talk about. Cincinnati Reds, a big sweep over the Chicago White Sox, a team who they should have swept. They do. And a great weekend all around for the Cincinnati Reds. They lost last night 9-3 on the road against the Seattle Mariners. We're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about the transfer portal for NCAA men's college basketball. We're going to talk about that, and especially focusing around the University of Dayton Flyers because there has been some breaking news. Last week, we already announced Kobe Elvis has officially entered the transfer portal. This week now, yet last night actually, Kobe Brea made his announcement clear that he intends to enter the transfer portal as well. So we're going to get into that for the later half of hour number 1. David Marshall will be joining us at the top of hour number 2, advanced NBA scout, to talk about the NBA playoffs for Talk Eastern and Western Conference and the playoff format. Who were some of the sleeper teams, some of the upsets, yada, 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 yada. The Masters were yesterday. And, of course, NFL teams back in the building for the first time of the new league season. Yesterday, the Cincinnati Bengals reported to Paycor Stadium. So NFL, the practices are back preparing. It's that odd time where you're practicing with the team. You're wanting to see how everybody gels together right before the NFL draft. And then you have new guys coming into the locker room. So certainly a lot to catch up on this show. And with everything that's been going on, I don't think we're going to be able to get this show just to catch up with everything. Tomorrow we have Caleb Spinner to talk about the Ohio State spring football game. Just a lot to talk about. And although it's off season for a lot of sports, I know baseball is getting into the swing of things, still young in their season. But outside of that, I mean, off season for quite a bit of sports, but still a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there's definitely a ton to talk about. And I like the talking point, or the thing you brought up, saying, the fact that as long as nothing happens, as long as nothing crazy happens, we'll be good to go throughout the remainder of this week. But yeah, there's definitely a lot to talk about, especially MLB wise, since we haven't talked about the Reds since the start of the series they had against Chicago. And then me even mentioning this team should be able to sweep Chicago. They were able to do just that just before losing a tough game. Obviously, interesting news hearing Kobe Brea entering the transfer portal. Not just that, but also UD getting a player from Ohio State and Zed Key to transfer to the University of Dayton. So, yeah, it's safe to say there's a lot of craziness and there's a lot of stuff that's going on when it comes to the University of Dayton, when it comes to the transfer portal. And I don't know how many times we've talked about and complained about the transfer portal when it comes to any college sport, but you're going to have to hear from it, and you're going to have to hear a little bit more about us complaining about it probably a little bit during this show as well. But yeah, there's definitely a lot. There's a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, certainly a lot of stuff to talk about. Let's talk about real quick the weekend action for the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds, they went into Chicago at 500 for the first time since the season started, and they played games. They were obviously 500 heading into opening day. But this is a Reds team that were back at 6-6. They lost 2 of 3 against the New York Mets last weekend, and then lost 2 of 3 against Milwaukee Brewers during the midweek. They had that Thursday off because of the rainout, and there was a lot of question marks. It was safe to say that the Reds were not playing their best baseball, and it was safe to say the inconsistencies, like we were talking about last week on this show, Matt, was plaguing the Cincinnati Reds. And Cincinnati went into Chicago to face the White Sox down in the South Side, and Cincinnati needed at least a series victory. You said a sweep against a very struggling White Sox team, and the Reds, they took on the White Sox, and they took advantage of them. And first off, I mean, you take a look at the final scores, the offense was absolutely tremendous. Everybody was getting the hot bat, but also the pitching. How about the starting rotation going 3-0 through 18 1/3, only giving up 1 earned run? We saw the return of Nick Lodolo. Nick Lodolo was lights out, only allowing 1 hit as the Reds ended up winning Saturday 5-0, only giving up 2 hits. So everything was going right for Cincinnati. They were playing complete baseball, and although it's the White Sox, although that they've only won 2 games this season, although that they're not the greatest of teams this season, going on the road with a lineup that has been struggling, with a team that has been struggling, going on the road and getting a sweep is hard to do in Major League Baseball. It doesn't matter if it is the worst team in the league or the best team in the league. When you go on the road and earn a series sweep, not just a victory, a series sweep, it is certainly a very hard thing to do. So the Cincinnati Reds over the weekend making it look easy, and something that they needed to install confidence. That confidence ran dry last night. We'll talk about that kind of coming up in the next 15 minutes or so. But Cincinnati over the weekend, it was a great day to be a Reds fan.
And yeah, that was one thing I brought up talking about this series, with the fact that we saw the last 2 games prior to that White Sox series for Cincinnati. I mean, the series against the Brewers was, even in the 10-8 win, it was a tough series to watch. If you ask me as a Reds fan, it was a tough series to watch, because that game we won 10-8, it was 8-0 at one point in that game, in the early stages of that game. Ended up being 10-8. So you had that confidence in the early half of that game, and then you started being, like myself, being a typical Reds fan, and started panicking down the stretch. And then the next 2 games weren't even that close. Against the Brewers, 4th game obviously got rained out. And I mentioned that series against Chicago, it either needed to be a sweep for Cincinnati, or their only loss in that series was by 1 run. They decided to sweep, and it wasn't even close. The closest game was a 5-0 game. So for me, Cincinnati did everything they needed to do in that series against Chicago. I would have liked a better start in the series against the Mariners, but the Mariners are a pretty tough team in and of themselves. But to me, I would say to try to rebuild off of that momentum you got from that White Sox series, I'm not saying it has to be a huge win tonight, but one of your next 2 games against Seattle, you've got to get the ball back rolling. You've got to get the ball rolling in your court once again, because, like you said, talking about this team struggling, it's not that this team is fully struggling from top to bottom of the roster. It's just the consistency of the team is what the struggle is. This Reds team, you look at their batting order, you look at the pitching rotation, there's no reason this team shouldn't be a team that wins 90-plus games at the end of the regular season. The only way they're not going to do that is if we start seeing consistency issues like we've been seeing with Cincinnati at some points throughout this season, and if that continues to plague Cincinnati, they might be around 500, or maybe a little bit worse, maybe a little bit better, and they're not going to be a 90-win team. But if we start see them getting rid of those consistency issues, if we see them start playing consistently high-level baseball, I would even say if we see them play consistent high-level baseball, this team can creep towards 95-plus wins on the season. But we've got to see them get to that consistent mark, which we have not seen Cincinnati do. You can say the White Sox series was a series where we saw the Reds get consistent, but I mean, you mentioned it, Jackson, the White Sox, let's be real, they're not good this year. They haven't looked good. They haven't played good. You mentioned 2 wins on the season. The Chicago White Sox have not looked good this year. So for Cincinnati to get that sweep on the road. It's a huge accomplishment, but it's also against one of the teams that is struggling the most. You talk about struggles in Cincinnati, and I know it's tough to win a series on the road against a team, no matter who it is, but it's against a team that you should at least have won the series against, and you were able to sweep.
To kind of cut you off there as well, I mean, when you look at the White Sox, what's something that we talk about all the time on this show? Beat teams how you are supposed to beat them. And that's exactly what Cincinnati was able to do. They were certainly able to take it to the Chicago White Sox, 11-1 victory, a 5-0 victory, then an 11-4 victory. I mean, 3 games where it wasn't even close. The offense was playing great defense. The pitching was phenomenal, especially from the starting rotation. So when you go on the road, it's always tough. But again, as you said, struggling White Sox team, beat teams how you're supposed to beat them. And that's exactly what Cincinnati was able to do.
Yeah, and there's no denying that. But the other thing I got to bring up too, this Cincinnati Reds team, and it's what I liked. The overall thing that I saw from that White Sox series that I loved seeing is what you just brought up. Beat teams the way you're supposed to beat them. You take a look at the Cincinnati Reds 2 years ago and last year. They would play a White Sox team that's struggling, and it would be low-scoring, close games every single game of the series, because that was a problem with Cincinnati, and it has been a problem with Cincinnati for the past few seasons. They play to the level of their competition. So for Cincinnati to go into Chicago, absolutely destroy the White Sox through those 3 games, like I said, to me, it's obviously a huge accomplishment and it can be a huge confidence boost to this team. But if it was against a stronger opponent, then I would be completely flipping what I'm saying here. But to me, it's a huge accomplishment. It's a huge morale boost for this team. But at the end of the day, that's what was supposed to happen. Yeah. Let's be real. The Reds were supposed to... It's not to say that it was guaranteed, but when you look at how the Reds have been playing and you look at how the White Sox have been playing, the Reds were supposed to sweep that series. And if they didn't, that would have been not bad, but it wouldn't have been good. So the Reds did what they were supposed to do in that series against the White Sox. And like I said, I'm not taking anything away from the fact that the Reds just swept them because, like you said, winning a series on the road is tough. Sweeping a series on the road is tough. Winning a series on the road is tough for any team in Major League Baseball. So I'm not taking that away from Cincinnati, but at the end of the day, the result from that series is what should have happened. So obviously you can use it as a huge confidence boost for the team, but to me, the fact that it was against the White Sox might take away a little bit of that confidence, and I'm not saying it's going to take away confidence from the team, but the impact that series sweep is going to have isn't going to mean as much as if the Reds went to Milwaukee and swept the Brewers, or if they went to even St. Louis and swept the Cardinals, because those teams are a lot better than Chicago is right now.
Yeah, and again, what did we talk about with the Cincinnati Reds? What have we talked about with them? Seems like over the last couple of weeks. You look at their schedule in the month of April. You look at their schedule in the month of May. This is a Reds team that down TJ Friedl, down Noel V. Marte, down Matt McClain. This is a Cincinnati Reds team that you get the sense that if they can finish the first 2 months of the season at 500, that gives them a chance to make a second half push, which is exactly when the Reds got hot last season to make that push as well. So Cincinnati off to a better start after yesterday's loss, 9-7. We'll talk about that loss coming up next. Is it time to worry about Frankie Montas? Simple answer, no. It's back-to-back bad starts. It's 4 games that we've seen of him on the season. It's not time to worry. That and more all coming up next on Sports Now.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers, like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs. And the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
Whenever you're feeling
hungry, it's skyline time. Gather together with friends and family, it's skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger-Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
TKDS Sports Network show, Sports Now. Jackson Lightcap Matthew Pennington. Glad you're with us. Thanks for joining us on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. If you're not watching the show, we hope that you're at least outside getting some wonderful weather, getting some of that wonderful sun, nice temperatures, a nice breeze. It is absolutely gorgeous outside. We're trapped in the studio. One of these days, we're going to have to get an outdoor studio so that way we can enjoy this beautiful weather with it as well. But Matt, let's continue on. Let's talk about the Cincinnati Reds and Cincinnati Reds baseball. It's been a while since we talked about them. Again, no show yesterday. But Cincinnati, they went on the road yesterday, and they have struggled playing on the road on the West Coast. And there's been situations where East Coast teams or Midwest teams will go out and play out West, and they struggle. They certainly struggle. The time difference, it lags on professional athletes. It certainly does. And the Reds have always struggled playing out West. And I think that there is something for Eastern time teams going to the West Coast to play in Pacific time. I think that there's a little bit of a lag. And then you take a look at Pacific time coming to play Eastern time. I think that there's a bit of a lag. I think that the most optimum point of success, if you're any professional athlete, is playing in the Central time zone, because either way you go, you're either gaining or losing an hour. So as I just knocked my phone on the table.
I thought that was your phone.
That was, I hope it's not broken. I just spent a bunch of money on it. But no. When you look
Sounds like a you problem.
It is. But when you look at the Reds, there's certainly something to talk about with that time difference. Now, I'm not saying that that's the reason why they lost. The reason why they lost is because they didn't score more runs. It's as simple as that. The offense wasn't there. The pitching staff wasn't there. We saw Frankie Montes probably his worst start, or not probably, no probably about it, the worst start from Frankie Montes' tenure so far with the Cincinnati Reds. There's a lot of overreaction, though, with Montes. Montes yesterday went 2 innings pitched, allowed 5 earned runs, only 1 strikeout, 5 walks, 66 total pitches. It's safe to say he did not have his stuff. And this is now back-to-back outings that have not been to the potential of Frankie Montes. But is it time to overreact? And the simple answer to that is no. It's not time to overreact. Look at what Montes was able to do in his first 2 games of the year. I mean, against Washington Nationals opening day, 6 innings pitched, only 4 hits allowed, no earned runs. And then against Phillies, one of the best lineups in all of baseball, 5 2/3 of an inning, 5 hits allowed, 1 earned run. So you look at those numbers, and through his first 11 2/3 of an inning, to open up the season, he only allowed 1 earned run against the Phillies, who have a terrific lineup, and the Nationals, who have I'll go ahead and say it, I'm not going to say that it's a terrific lineup, but a very slept-on lineup. I mean, you got Jesse Winker, who's smashing the ball. You have Abrams, who is a very young player with a lot of potential as well. That lineup is very sneaky. It's a sleeper lineup for sure. You look back at last week's start against Milwaukee Brewers. He went 5 innings, only allowing 3 earned runs, 96 total pitches. A start that was not up to his standards. But, Matt, here's my point of emphasis. Everybody wants to deem it a bad start because it wasn't up to his standards. Can we just say for the fact that that's not a bad start? You allowed 3 earned runs in 5 innings. That's not a bad start whatsoever. I mean, in that game, that's a 2.16 ERA. So, actually, I beg your pardon. I think that was might have been a little bit miscued. I'm looking at a stat reader right here from ESPN. But no, nonetheless, when you look at 5 innings pitched, allowing 3 earned runs, that's not a bad game. That's an average game. It's not a tremendous game, but it's not an awful game. It was an average game from Frankie Montas, but you pair that after his first 2 starts of the season, and then you see what happened yesterday. There's a lot of overreactions right now surrounding Frankie Montas. But the time right now, it is no time to panic. It is not time to overreact, such as everybody loves to do now these days. The people that are overreacting right now about Frankie Montas are probably the same people that were overreacting on Ellie De La Cruz and were calling him to go to AAA just a couple of weeks ago. So, again, early in the year, pitchers trying to find their stride. No time to panic whatsoever. I can't even believe we're having to talk about this on this show.
And I mean, to me, it's obviously different because it's 2 different players, but talking about panic going on when it comes to the pitching, take a look at what Alexis Diaz did in his first outing against Washington. He had an 81 ERA. He's gotten that down to 6, and he's pitched 5 2/3 since that first third of an inning he pitched in that game against the Nationals, and he struggled. I'm not saying that the same thing is going to happen with Frankie Montas, and he's going to be able to turn things around immediately, and he's going to be able to get back to what we saw him do, say, opening day game, some of the starts before his little slip-ups we've seen these past 2 days. But when it comes to pitching, especially, you can have moments, and like I said, because I've talked about this multiple different times because I myself was a pitcher, it is as much of a mental game as it is a physical game. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong mentally right now with Frankie Montas, but if you have an outing where you do not have your stuff that you have been dishing out in prior games during the season, you can start losing confidence in yourself, you can start losing confidence in your ability, and you can start struggling because of that. I'm not saying that that's guaranteed to be what's going on with Frankie Montas right now, but at the end of the day, with as much of a mental game pitching is as it is a physical game, it is totally possible that Frankie Montas, after he had his first bad outing, started losing confidence in himself, started losing his confidence in what he was able to do on the pitcher's mound, and then he had his outing yesterday not being confident in what he's capable of. That is totally possible. And at the end of the day, that's something that if a pitcher's given time to recuperate themselves, get their minds right, next outing we could see from Montas, if it is a mental problem right now and he gets his mind right, we could see an opening day Frankie Montas the next time he's out there on the mound. It's not guaranteed to say that's going to happen, but at the end of the day, you've got a player who, at the start of the season, looked incredible. He struggled the past few outings. I'm not saying that the outing we saw yesterday was because of that first bad outing we saw him have, but at the end of the day, if it is, a mental part of the game could be a reason to blame, or could be a part of why Frankie Montas did not do that good last night. And if he gets his mind right, we could easily see him, and it doesn't even have to be a mental thing. He might have just not had his stuff the past few days. His breaking pitch might not have been, one of his breaking pitches might not have been breaking as much as it usually does, or his fastball might not have been, he might not have been able to locate his fastball as good as he was in opening day, or as good as he was in his second outing of the season. But that happens when you're a pitcher. Not every single day are you going to be able to throw 110% and throw your best stuff every single day. If you are able to do that, you would be being paid like Shohei Ohtani is kind of money. Not as much because you'd have to be able to hit nukes like Shohei Ohtani can, but here, you'll be getting Aaron Nola kind of money if you're able to put out and you're able to dish out your 100% of what you're able to do every single day. Not every pitcher is able to dish out and throw 110% of their ability every single time they step out on the mound. You're going to have bad days. There's no reason to overreact to it because, like I said, if we wanted to go with the overreacting route and we wanted to go crazy about stuff, Alexis Diaz would have been off the roster after game number 1. And since then, he has pitched 5 2/3 innings and he has allowed 1 earned run. in those 5 2/3. Overreacting is not what we need to be doing right now.
And, let's talk about the Mariners for a second. The Mariners, this was a team that was destined to blow up. They just got done with a 3-game series against Chicago Cubs where they combined for 7 runs Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This is a lineup that is too talented. And I know that you look at the Seattle Mariners and you look at their record and, they're a couple games below 500. This is a team that Cincinnati should be beating. It's still so early in the season, you cannot take record into account. You can't sleep on any team. And the Seattle Mariners, this is a team that has been battling for a playoff spot the last couple of years. They made it a couple of years ago. They just missed it last season. But this is a lineup, and this is a team that has been in the talks. I mean, you look at who they sent to the dish yesterday. I mean, you got J.P. Crawford, a shortstop, who's been incredible during his career. Julio Rodriguez, everybody knows, the young superstar center fielder. You got Jorge Polanco. You have Mitch Haniger, Ty France, Luke Raley has come to life as well. And then you look at the pitching staff as well. I mean, former Red Luis Castillo's in that rotation. He hasn't even thrown his best outing. You got Logan Gilbert, who's going to be on the mound tonight for the Seattle Mariners, who's posted a 2.66 ERA during his starts, but he has had no decisions in every single one of his games. So this is a Seattle Mariners team that is too talented to be held in check. And it was only a matter of time before they blew up, and it just so happened to be on the Reds yesterday. And the point of the matter is that's baseball. You can't sit there and look at a Reds 9-3 loss after they just absolutely demolished the White Sox, a team who they should have beat did beat how they should have. You can't just look there at the Cincinnati Reds and say, oh, well, look at their record. They're a few games below 500, although we're only 16 games in the year. This is a team that the Reds should be beating. No, that's not the case. Remember last year, the Reds at this time were well below 500, and they still ended up falling just a game shy of a playoff spot. So anything can happen. It's a 162-game season. I mean, look at back-to-back seasons for the Philadelphia Phillies. They've been both under 500 heading into mid-May. And they've ended up playing in the NLCS both years in a row, 1 year in the World Series. Anything can happen. So when you look at the Seattle Mariners, just because they're off to a tough start, they've played a tough schedule. This is too talented of a lineup to be held in check. It just so happened that they exploded against the Cincinnati Reds. Losing last night on the West Coast does not make the Cincinnati Reds a bad team. It just shows the full potential of what the Seattle Mariners are capable of and what heights they will reach later on this season.
And yeah, you really just have to look at the Mariners' schedule so far this season, and that'll tell you all you need to know about. Yes, this team is sitting at 7-10 right now, but you take a look at their record so far this season. They've only split one series. Every other series they've lost. But you take a look at the teams they've played. They split the series against Boston to open up the year. Boston is a 9-win team. You take a look at their next series. They lost the series to the Guardians. The Guardians are an 11-win team right now. Brewers, Cubs, Blue Jays, they lost all of those series 2-1, and we know how good the Cubs, the Brewers, and the Blue Jays are. The worst team of those three is the Blue Jays, who sit at, I believe, 9-8 right now on the season. So if the worst teams that this Mariners team has played so far in the series they've completed so far this year, if the worst teams that this Mariners team has played this year is 9-8 Boston and 9-8 Toronto, and outside of that, they've played a 10-5 Brewers team where they lost the series, a 10-6 Cubs team who they lost the series to, and then a Guardians team that is 11-5. This Mariners team has played one of the toughest schedules you're going to see in Major League Baseball up until this point during the season, and now they've got Cincinnati, another team with 9 wins on the season. So this Mariners team, they have played a very, very, very tough schedule so far this year. And it just goes into your point and what you said, Jackson, saying that you take a look at this team's overall record and you think, man, the Reds should be beating this team. Seattle has played a gauntlet to start the season. We talk about the Reds, the gauntlet that they've got coming up. The Mariners had that gauntlet to start their season. The Reds had a little bit of an easier start to the season when it came to some of the teams they had to play. But Seattle, sitting at 7-10 right now, you might look at that record and say Cincinnati should be winning this series. They might even be able to sweep this series. You got to take a look at the record of pretty much every single team that you play up until this point, because
it's
still way too early. And the record that you see on paper isn't going to tell you how good a team truly is.
Look at the Washington Nationals, the 2019 team when they won the World Series. They were below 500 until June. They were a second-half bloomer. And they ended up sneaking in as a wild card team and ended up winning the World Series that season. It's baseball. Anything's going to happen. So tough loss last night for the Cincinnati Reds. All you can do is ask Hunter Green to bounce back for you tonight and hopefully get the lineup back to what they were capable of as well. What we saw them be capable of over the weekend when they were in Chicago. So time for a break. We're done with Reds baseball talk. So all the non-Reds baseball fans out there may return to our show. We're going to be talking about the UD Flyers and men's basketball and the NCAA college basketball transfer portal in general. That's all coming up before 5 o'clock when David Marshall joins us to talk NBA playoffs. That and more coming up next here on Sports Now.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers, like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs. And the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Just another reminder, folks, we are still working on trying to get phone-in lines in the studio. Again, it's all part of the new kind of rebrand we're going with the network, TKDS Sports, and also we're trying to move on with this show as well. So bear with us. We are still trying to get phone-in lines in the show, but until that happens, drop your comments and thoughts in the chat. We'll be responding to them. We're trying to keep an eye on it. We glance every periodically. We may see it late, but we do look at every comment. So nonetheless, we welcome you back here. Happy Tuesday, Jackson Lightcap Matthew Pennington. A lot to talk about here upcoming, as we're going to talk about the NCAA college basketball transfer portal. And before we get into any of the big announcements, we're going to talk about Kobe Brea's decision to leave Dayton University of Dayton here momentarily. But before we get into any other further conversations, I mean, we had this same conversation once the football season ended. And now with all the NIL that's taken over, now with all the transfer portal that has been taken over and how lenient it is, and also I think it all breaks down to the years of college eligibility remaining. I mean, everybody's getting 7th-year seasons, 8th-year seasons because of COVID. Oh, you were a redshirt. Oh, you were injured. Oh, it's now your graduate season. There's so many different seasons now where you can come back for more eligibility instead of the traditional, you get 5 years to play 4 seasons, which is what the idea used to be. Now you're starting to see players get 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, just as I was talking about. And if things aren't working out at one school, you think about a long tenure like that, obviously you're going to want to glance elsewhere. And that's why the transfer portal has been so broken. And everybody wanted to talk about this back during basketball season, I beg your pardon, during football season, because football was the first sport to end. We saw the transfer portal open up for football in the fall for the first time. By the way, the spring transfer portal window will open up today for college football. But when we saw the transfer portal open up in the fall, it was a madhouse. It was madhouse, and it had a lot of people upset and infuriated with what the NCAA was allowing, and it was infuriating everybody because it was left wide open. There was nobody regulating it, and it was just, and everybody wanted to pay attention to football, not knowing that after the basketball season, the same exact thing was going to happen to basketball. And that's exactly what we're starting to see. Players now leaving schools, trying to chase money, trying to chase other opportunities, and NIL has come in. And now when you have players jumping ship from small colleges and jumping ship in general to enter the transfer portal it's one thing to enter the transfer portal to get more playing time and to help boost your confidence and get into a school that you fit better at. It's a different thing to jump into the transfer portal and just now have bigger colleges, be able to throw bags of money at you. As light just came on behind me.
It's like after 30 minutes, it just decides to.
The second time that's happened on the show, but it's different again when you have players that are going in the transfer portal for the right reasons, try to find a new home, try to find a new fit, maybe following a coach that they enjoyed playing for. That's different. But now when you're jumping in the transfer portal and just getting thrown bags of money your way for NIL, it changes the landscape of the game. And we're seeing a lot of players leaving their colleges to go into the transfer portal to try to find their bags of money and try to find NIL money in the transfer portal. It's not necessarily for the right reasons. It's going for money. And in retrospect, I mean, can we blame the college athletes? I can't blame the athletes. I'm going to use Kobe Bryant for an example, and we're going to get into talking about him here in a little bit. He's not the only one that's doing this. And frankly, I don't even know if this is the reason he's doing this. He's jumping in the transfer portal. He's going to be throwing bags of money. But if I was a college basketball player, Matt, I'm not. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm way too short. And frankly, I'm just not that good at basketball.
You're not better than me, though.
I'm just not that good at basketball. I'm 6 feet tall. But if I was a college basketball player, if I know NIL exists and I know how to utilize NIL, I'm jumping in the portal. I'm jumping in the portal, especially if I'm from a small university. I'm taking advantage of that, and I'm getting my money when I can because it's sports. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, unfortunately, we've seen sad story of sports where a player has all the potential in the world but has a massive injury and can't continue playing, and then they lose out on fortunes. They lose out on millions. So if you're a college athlete, if you're a young 18 to 22-year-old, and you see, obviously, yes, I don't think anybody's disagreeing the portal is broken. I don't think anybody's disagreeing that NIL is broken, but you can't blame the college kids for wanting to jump into the portal to take advantage of the brokenness, because at the end of the day, they're getting bags of money, which again, I don't think should be allowed. Matt, I know you don't think should be allowed, but there's no regulation, so who's stopping them? So why not try to take advantage of that if you're a college basketball player and get your money?
Especially when you're a player like Kobe Bryant. I mean, you take a look at the season he had last year, coming off the bench for UD, arguably one of, if not the best six-man player in all of college hoops last year. There are a lot of teams that are willing to fork up a decent chunk of money to get him being on the starting five roster for that team. Let me cut you off
because you bring me into a great point. Since then, this was reported by Jamie Shaw. This was I guess Kobe Bryant told On3 Sports. I'm reading something here off Twitter, but this some reliable sources. Jamie Shaw On3 Sports. Kobe Bryant has already, since he's entered the transfer portal last night, he's already been in contact with Kansas, UConn, Duke, Indiana, Arkansas, Louisville, Oregon, Penn State, Mississippi State, Miami, Illinois, Texas Tech, Arizona, Texas A&M, Xavier, St. John's, Virginia Tech. That is an incredible list. When you have back-to-back defending national champions, UConn, on that list. Now, I don't know if, Kobe Bryant maybe, let's face it, UD, we've talked about them. We're Flyer fans, but we're not shy to admit that the A-10 at the end of the day is not a very big conference. It is not a very good conference. You're going to see one, maybe two teams get in. You're not going to see a whole lot of at-large teams. I'm not saying it's simple competition. Again, I'm 6 feet tall. I'm short. I like to think I'm tall, but compared to basketball player tallness and height, I'm short. I am very, very short compared to them. So I'm not a basketball player whatsoever. I never was. I tried to be, and I wasn't good. But when you look at the A10 compared to the Big 12, compared to the Big East, where is that competition at? The Big 12 and the Big East. So everybody just wants to sit here and assume that Kobe Brea may be jumping in the transfer portal to get a bag of money, which if he did, go him. Good for him. Good for him. Yes, the transfer portal is broken. Yes, the NIL is broken. Everybody can sit here and bash it all they want, but at the end of the day, again, if I'm in Kobe Brea's shoes, I'm taking advantage of getting my money. If you're a college athlete, a broke college kid, and you have a chance to make your money, why not take advantage of it? But even if that's not the situation, look at the schools who have contacted him. He's got a chance to jump from an A10 school to playing for a possible national championship contender. Not saying that if he returned to Dayton, they wouldn't be a championship contender. But I mean, look at what the opportunities Kobe Brea has out there and other athletes that are also jumping ship and entering the transfer portal. You have a chance to make more money. And again, you have a chance to play for a squad that maybe fits your reign better, that maybe fits your skill set better. And that's exactly what Kobe Brea has a chance to do. He has a chance to earn his spot on a blue blood team and find a home and earn a spot that only isn't going to help him out currently with playing time, with NIL money. But if he balls out there like he did at UD, this is a guy that we could be seeing going pro. So, again, I think that I've seen a lot of things and a lot of speculation that, oh, well, players are just jumping ship for money. But at the end of the day, we don't know what the players are thinking. So why sit here and bash them for jumping the portal? And even if it is a money situation, can we blame them for taking advantage of it? I mean, Matt, we sit here and, I think we make some decent money. But at the same time, it's not millions and millions and millions of dollars worth. If I'm a basketball player and I'm being offered millions of dollars, I'm going to get my money. Bring me my money.
And yeah, that's one thing. I mean, you listed off some of the teams for Kobe Brea, and to me, I'm not saying that, and like you said, it's not to say that it's guaranteed that Kobe Brea is only doing this to try to get money, or if he's trying to, or that every player is trying to do it just to get money. I'll tell you what, you talk about Kobe Brea potentially going pro. Say he puts up the same kind of numbers. Say he you mentioned UConn on that list. Say he goes to UConn and puts up very similar numbers that we saw him put up this past season for UD. Which team is he more likely to get drafted from? Putting up the numbers he's able to put up now at UD, or putting up numbers for UConn? Which of those two teams do you think gives Kobe Brea a higher chance of getting drafted? It's not our team. It's not UD. No. It's UConn.
And that's what comes with being a smaller college. That's what comes from playing from a smaller conference. And it's sad to say, it's awful to say, being a fan of that team, but that's how it is. I mean, how many players have the A10 been able to feed into bigger colleges over the last couple of years? Outside of Obi Toppin, outside of Stephen Curry, there's been very, very minimal players that have gone to the NBA and have had success that have come from the A10 compared to the Big 12, compared to the Big 10, compared to the Big East. And that's just the nature of the game. So I've seen a lot of, bashing going around on Twitter. And I've seen a lot of things that have been going around on Twitter. And again, if it's about the money, can you blame them? I mean, all the people that are saying all this stuff about the transfer portal, again, nobody's saying that transfer portal isn't broken. Nobody's saying that NIL isn't broken. But that's the NCAA's problem to fix. So my question to everybody, is that, if I'm a college kid, I'm getting my money. And again, when you circle this back to Kobe Brea, no matter if he left for NIL, no matter if he left to get a bigger role on a possible better team, instead of being upset and bashing his decision to leave the University of Dayton and enter the transfer portal, can we just thank him for the last couple of years of what he did for the University of Dayton? Instead of bashing him for leaving the University of Dayton, can we just sit here and thank him for what he did to the University of Dayton. Because he built this program up. He came in after that COVID year where COVID practically ruined everything. And his class, including him, played a big part in building it, and he played a crucial part on getting that team to March Madness this season. Thank you, Kobe Brea. Thank you, Kobe Brea. Thank you for all the other college athletes out there who have sacrificed their time to make us as fans enjoy watching you on our team.
That's one thing I will say, too. Wherever Kobe Brea goes,
congratulations, good luck.
Congratulations, good luck, and I'm going to be slightly rooting for that team. Same can be said for Kobe Elvis, wherever he transfers to. Same can be said for Pettigimus, wherever he transfers to. Wherever those teams transfer to, unless they play UD, I'm going to be hoping they win every single game they play. If they play UD, I'm going to hope they lose that one game against the Flyers, but outside of that, say Kobe Brea goes to UConn, like we've talked about a few times already. I'm not going to be a diehard Huskies fan, but I'm going to want to see him winning games with Kobe Brea out there on that floor because I've said it multiple times, especially when it comes to, say, Ohio State football. Wherever players go, I was liking seeing what Joe Burrow did in LSU. I'm liking seeing what Quinn Ewers is doing right now in Texas. If a player from a team that I support goes somewhere else, yes, it's tough that they're no longer going to be a Buckeye or they're no longer going to be a Flyer or whatever the team is. I'm still going to want to see them do good. I'm still going to want to see them succeed. I'm not just going to say because that player decided to go somewhere else, you're dead to me. I don't want to see you do good. I hope your career goes down the hill or down the drain. I'm never going to be like that. Kobe Brea, wherever he ends up transferring to, I'm not going to be a diehard fan of that team, but I'm going to want to see Kobe Brea do good, and I'm going to want to see that team do good. Same can be said for Pettigimus. Same can be said for Elvis. Same can be said for anybody on UD that potentially transfers. I'm going to want to see those players succeed at the end of the day.
Matt, we really need to fix your camera. Sometimes it wants to go way left. Sometimes it wants to go way right.
I'm sitting still, so it's not a me problem.
I think it is a you problem.
The camera just doesn't want to look at me. It doesn't like how I look, so it's trying to get away from looking at me.
You're lucky you haven't broken the lens yet.
Yeah, I would be surprised if I did that first. I think that's a you thing to do first.
Hey, I have been we have been told before we do have faces for radio. Time for a break.
Exactly.
We're going to continue this talk with the University of Dayton. Instead of talking about the players that they lost, we're going to talk about Deron Holmes, and we're also going to be talking about some of the players that they have been able to bring in and what the Flyers can do in the looming future with how many scholarships they have available to rebuild this this March Madness tournament squad. That and more coming up next on the flip side of the commercial break on Sports Now.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers, like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs. And the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger-Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions. It's me. Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Jackson Lightcap Matthew Pennington. We're talking about the University of Dayton men's basketball, and obviously the loss of Kobe Bryant. We just talked about that, NIL transfer portal in general, and we have about 7 minutes or so before David Marshall, advanced NBA scout, will join us. Let's continue to talk about the Flyers, because up until last night, you got the sense of feeling that the only major player that the Flyers were going to lose to the transfer portal was going to be Kobe Elvis. And then obviously Deron Holmes and his decision looming on whether or not he is going to declare for the NBA draft or whether or not he'll come back to Dayton for another year, which I do think is not out of the picture. I do think Deron Holmes could be returning to Dayton. But again, I could also see him going to the NBA draft. I think that's a toss-up 50-50. We'll just have to wait until he makes that official announcement. But, I mean, up until then, up until Kobe Bryant transferring out, I mean, you return Nate Santos. You end up returning quite a bit of players for this Dayton Flyers team. I mean, Kobe Bryant, I believe, Enoch Cheeks, I believe, Javon Bennett. There were a lot of opportunities for the Flyers to grow. Then you get Zed Key from the transfer portal from Ohio State to take over that center. You pair him with Deron Holmes. If Deron Holmes is able to return to the University of Dayton, then you have a big man post. It's going to be a great post team with a couple shooters on the outside. But then Brea made the announcement last night that he is going to enter the transfer portal, thus leaving the University of Dayton. And it seems like that will take the Flyers a step back, which I certainly do think it does, because you're losing Brea, who was probably going to be in the starting five this season, a great shooter. But at the end of the day, again, the transfer portal is broken. But with how broken it is, the Flyers can still utilize that and take advantage of it. And with some of the players that they're returning, such as Nate Santos, maybe Deron Holmes, with how great of a coach Anthony Grant is for the University of Dayton Flyers, you go into the transfer portal, you get a guard, a forward, a couple of other scorers, especially three-point shooters that can help and benefit your team. The Flyers can be back in March Madness next season. They can be back at the top of the A-10 next season. This is a Flyers team that has a lot of potential to have similar success, if not better success, next season than what they did this season. And you look back at what the Flyers have been able to do in the transfer portal the last couple of years. You had Zed Key from Ohio State. I think that's a great addition. Nate Santos came from the transfer portal. You were able to add him. I mean, look at E.B. Watson. He was in the transfer portal. He came from Michigan. Anthony Grant has been able to utilize the transfer portal so well over the last couple of years to benefit his team, especially with shooters on the outside. I don't think it should be any different story this season for the University of Dayton Flyers. Hopefully some big names will come back to UD. Hopefully some big names will come to UD for the first time via the transfer portal. But again, it's so early in the offseason, but as it's looking like right now, the Flyers do still have some keys to success, especially if Deron Holmes does stay in Dayton and doesn't go to the NBA draft, that the Flyers can be competitive next season as well.
And yeah, right now, I mean, you take a look at last year, take a look at the transfers that came to UD from last year to this season. Take a look at the players that started a majority of games for UD. Javon Bennett, Enoch Cheeks, and Nate Santos all transferred into UD. Yes, we're seeing some players leave in, obviously, Elvis and Brea, but it's totally possible that this Flyers team could find some players in the transfer portal, get them to come to UD, and this team still is a team that is at the caliber of what we saw this Flyers team be a season ago. Already have Zed Key from Ohio State. If he plays to the potential that he has, He can be a force to be reckoned with inside for this Flyers team. And then, like I said, I mean, you take a look at the fact that obviously it wasn't in the cards at the very start of the season for Javon Bennett to be one of the starters on this team, but that's the hand that was dealt to UD. Javon Bennett ended up having to take one of the starting roles after Smith went down in the first few minutes of the season. Santos, obviously transferring in from Pitt, he ends up being one of the key pieces to this Flyers team. Enoch Cheeks, he wasn't up there when it came to points per game, but when it came to impact, him transferring
especially defensively.
Exactly. Him transferring from Robert Morris to UD last year. He obviously had a ton of impact on this team. So yes, we're seeing some pieces to UD transfer out, and we're seeing some pieces to the team that you take a look now with only having Zed Key transfer in, panic might start setting into for some Flyer fans, but at the end of the day, this Flyers team, even if we see I wouldn't say it would have to be a fraction of what we saw transfer portal-wise last year to get players to come to UD, but if we see, say, 3/4 of the talent we saw transfer into UD last year, transfer in this year, this Flyers team isn't really going to be missing a beat going into next year, even if we see Deron Holmes declared for the NBA draft. Obviously, Elvis and Brea, they've entered the transfer portal. It's more than likely they're going to go elsewhere. If the Flyers bring in 3/4 of the talent we saw them bring in last year in the transfer portal, with already having Zed Key, this Flyers team, they might go backwards a few steps, but they're not going to fall off the face of the earth. No. They're still going to be a very competitive team in the Atlantic 10. So it's still very early when it comes to the transfer portal for college basketball. So the Flyers, 2 weeks from now, could end up, who knows, we could end up seeing one of the best shooters in college basketball who entered the transfer portal. They might want to come to UD. You never know when it comes to the transfer portal. Anything can happen.
And again, I said this in the last 15 minutes. I'm saying it now. If I had a nickel for how many times I've had to say this on this show today, I'd probably be a millionaire, and I wouldn't need to go chase a bag and get NIL money. If you're a college athlete, transfer portal is broken. NIL is broken. I have not met anybody out there who is denying that. I have not met anyone, and I like to think I know quite a bit of people. I like it, but no, I haven't met anybody that's not going to deny that this is all broken. But in retrospect, it's broken. It is what it is. Players are going to take advantage of it, as they should, and coaches should also take advantage of it. Universities should take advantage of it. Just because you think that it's broken doesn't mean you're going to be, oh, no, it's broken. I don't believe in that. I'm not going to utilize the transfer portal. I'm not going to utilize NIL. It's broken. I don't agree with that. I'm not doing that, because guess what? All your competition is doing that. So they are getting better, and you're taking steps backwards. So, again, it's all broken, but everybody's going to take advantage of it. And at the end of the day, it is what it is. There's nothing that we can do about it. There's nothing that anybody else can do about it but the NCAA. And until that happens, we're going to see players and coaches taking advantage of it. And I would certainly expect Anthony Grant to take advantage of that transfer portal, such as he already has this year and the last couple of years, to try to build another championship team for the University of Dayton. Time for a break. When we return, David Marshall will be with us on the flip side of the break to talk NBA playoffs. That's upcoming on Sports Now.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers, like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs and the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Rolling into hour number 2 of the show, Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington. We are joined with advanced NBA scout and TKDS sports broadcaster, our friend David Marshall. David joins us about once a week or so to give us NBA updates. In this show, it's a little bit more special because the NBA playoffs are about to officially get underway. The bracket is already set. David, my friend, once again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Can you hear us loud and clear?
Clear, guys. How's it going?
We are doing wonderful. Hope you're doing well as yourself. And a lot to talk about. The NBA, the play-in game's going to be getting underway. Western and Eastern Conference. It is official playoff time across NBA basketball. We've been prepping this for the last couple weeks, but now we know the bracket. And David, before we get into talking about some of the teams that are involved and some of the upsets that we could see on both sides of the bracket, let's talk a little bit about the NBA play-in games. The play-in games, how they work. They've been around now for the past couple of years, and ultimately it gives more of teams an opportunity to get themselves into the main playoff pool and fight for a championship.
Yes, I totally agree. And it's something where, you know, the one thing the NBA don't talk about is teams tanking and things of that nature. So encourage teams. And actually, it took a bit for the NCAA because they have a play-in game, but just something to create excitement on the back end of the season. And decided to implement these play-in games. Anything to get guys to play more. I mean, the one thing about Adam Silver, he's done as commissioner, guys are playing more games. So, and the play-in game is a one and done, really. You know, well, if you're a 7 or 8, you're not done. If you lose, you're not done. You're just going to have to play the loser of the 9 and 10. And if you lose that, well, actually, I think it's if you win the 7 and 8, if you win that game, you're in. So I think 7 plays 8, you're in, and then 8, and then the 8 has to play the winner of 9 and 10. Is how, if I'm correct. So it's a lot of high stakes happening right there.
Yeah, and when you look at the play-in game, I mean, 9 seed on this is the Western side. 9 seed, the Kings will play the 10 seed, the Warriors. Winner of that game will move on to the next phase. The 7 seed, the Pelicans will play the 8 seed, the Los Angeles Lakers. Whoever wins that automatically gets in as the 7 seed.
Right.
Whoever ends up losing that game will play the winner of that 9-10 game for a chance to get to that number 8 seed going up against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then on the Eastern side, you have the 9 seed, the Chicago Bulls, the 10 seed, the Atlanta Hawks, the 7 seed, the 76ers, the 8 seed, the Miami Heat, and pretty much the exact case scenario. So pretty much if you're a 7 and 8 seed, you win, you're in. You're that 7 seed. But if you are the loser of that game, you still have life, but it certainly is hard for a 9-10 team because you have to win 2 play-in games practically to find yourself as an 8 seed to end up playing the Oklahoma City Thunder. So a lot to unfold, a lot of confusing, but David, I agree with you. When you look at professional sports in general, to me it seems like there's been, especially in the NFL and in the NBA kind of combated this way back when they added the draft lottery about tanking for players. If you're a team that doesn't have a great team, great draft class upcoming, you're going to tank and try to get the top player in that draft. The NBA combated that years ago with adding that NBA draft lottery, something that Major League Baseball has adapted. We've yet to see the NFL adapt. But this is also another deterrent for teams tanking, which makes the league a lot more competitive, and again opens up the doors for a lot of the teams to have an opportunity. And I like how the NBA playoffs are saying it's only you have to be a top 8 seed. They don't consider these play-in games necessarily playoff games, although that's what they are.
Correct. And with the NFL, the hard thing about them tanking is it has been proven to be something that's always successful. Now, if you get the franchise-changing quarterback, then yes, like John Elway, even Terry Bradshaw, those guys, yeah, you know what, tanking's kind of good. But like you said, baseball, it's still hit and miss on that. But NBA, tanking was good to get that number 1 pick. It does change the franchise because there's only 5 guys. Baseball, you got 9 guys playing. Football, you got 11, 22 total. So there's a lot of variables. But definitely, tanking was a thing for the NBA. And it's smart if you think about it. But now, with the playing games, it does – and they're rewarding more and more teams, with trying to finish up the season, too, which they should. They don't want to consider using European methods. Sorry about that, guys. My bread's almost ready. But they should, and it's not a bad thing. I got off tangent too. So what are we talking about? You get me going, Jackson, I lose focus. So
we're talking about the NBA playing games. I know we caught you at a bad time. You're cooking dinner. It is dinner time. Yeah. You're making me hungry, David.
I know. I'm the man. Guys, I'm making spaghetti, meatball sauce, and this fettuccine Alfredo recipe I found.
Can we just all say? Good. Can we all just agree it's dinner at David's tonight?
Yes. That sounds like a podcast, fellas. Let's trademark it. But it's going to be interesting in playing games. And the whole league always wants the Lakers in it until it's time we got our ratings, we move on. And it's going to be interesting with that Pelicans-Lakers game. Because I think the Pelicans are going to beat them. Personally, I think they're going to beat them. So it's going to be interesting. And then so LeBron's going to have to. LeBron's played in the playing game since its inception. Think about that. One of our greatest players of all time has played in every single playing game, and he was the one who was openly demonstrative about it. So luckily, it's helped him, his playoff run. So kind of ironic, so to speak.
Hey, David, real quick, let's take a look at the play-in games. On the Eastern side, as we mentioned, 10-seed Hawks will face the 9-seed Bulls. The 76ers will face the 8-seed the Heat. The Kings and the Warriors, 9 versus 10 on the Western side. And then the Pelicans and Lakers, 7 versus 8 on the Western side. Those play-in games will be happening here, actually starting tonight as well. So when you look at the play-in games, David, what are some storylines? What are some teams to watch out for? Who are some sleeper teams that are in the play-in games that could win, punch their ticket to the main playoff round 1, and end up making a run, such as we've seen teams do in years past?
The one team I think is going to make a nice run is Dallas, but they're not in the playing game. But the one team in the playing game on the West, I think Golden State's going to be the one to watch. Veteran team, and Chris Paul is back. So that helps a lot. With take Steph Curry off the ball. They can play 3-guard offense because everybody plays small ball. If you look at the last 10 games, they've been playing great basketball. They've been winning tough road games. So with Chris Paul being healthy, and one thing about Chris Paul, but he can manage the game. He's an amazing game manager. And in playoff basketball, that's important. And he also, the one thing that hurts the Golden State Warriors all the time is they play so free. Steve Kerr has allowed that because that's been part of their success. But they do make costly turnovers. So now you got a Hall of Fame point guard, first ballot Hall of Fame, should be unanimous point guard. But all Hall of Fame voters are crazy because they don't want nobody to be unanimous. But with that being said, he will control those moments when he's in there with Clay and Steph and Draymond. See, Draymond can play big, small. He can be a forward, small, and impact the game. So they're going to be dangerous for our sake. And so I think that's the one I feel like is going to make a run. And they're going to be on the road against Sacramento. They're going to be on the road against the next opponent. But at the same time, it's not far-fetched for them not to win those 2 games. Because they're looking at it. We're going to win 2 games. We just got to win 2 games in a row and we're in the playoffs. It's not like something they've never done before. So the Lakers, I would thought they was going to make a run, but LeBron's always banged up. He will play. Anthony Davis had back spasms, and they are hard to get over in such a short time. So I could see the Lakers not getting out of the playing game. Seriously. They're in danger. It's just my opinion, unless they're playing cat and mouse on the west side. On the east side, Chicago, Atlanta is not much to get excited about. I would be shocked if Chicago doesn't win. But hats off to Chicago. They need to decide, are we going to just try to win championships, or are we just going to tank all the time? They got in the middle of the season like, hey, we're going to tank. And then players like, no, we're not. And Billy Donovan like, no, we're not. And from my understanding, Billy Donovan said, I don't want to tank. If we're going to tank, then, and I think in his contract, it's stipulated, we will put the best product on the floor, or he can get out of his contract and get paid. And one thing the Bulls don't like to do is paying coaches that are not coaching for them. You can look that up, on the east side. And then also Philadelphia, Miami, I think Philly's in trouble just because Embiid can't stay healthy. And Heat coach is scary, man. I can see the Heat is going to win that one game so they won't have to play anymore. I can see them winning that game. Heat culture is a real thing. And everybody asks me what Heat culture is. I'll tell you, adversity doesn't faze them. It doesn't. They embrace it. They don't let it stall their progress, and they move on. Heat culture, we're going to be in the best shape ever. Heat culture, we're going to be the toughest team out there. So that's Heat culture now. And then everything else is fluff. At the essence, that's what Heat culture, Pat Riley has instilled in the organization. And they got the pieces for that.
And David, kind of continuing on with the Miami Heat, this is a Miami Heat team that has been, they're not strangers of the play-in game. They've been in the play-in game for the last couple of years. They have, look at the success that they've had. Made it to the NBA Finals a couple of years ago. Made it to the Eastern Conference Finals a couple of years ago. Jimmy Butler turns into a different caliber player once he enters playoff basketball. And the Heat, again, no surprise to the play-in game. This is a team that has struggled through the regular season, but now here they are as the 8th seed. And I agree with you. I mean, Joel Embiid, here's the thing with the 76ers. 76ers earlier this year at the midway mark, they were looking like they were going to be a 1, 2, 3, or 4 seed. Now, obviously, that's when the Celtics absolutely ran away and took away the 1 seed. But the 76ers at one point this season were in the playoff picture as a 2 seed. Embiid got hurt. They fall now to a 7 seed. Now they're having to play in the play-in game, and that hurts. So now Embiid, he's been a little bit banged up. That has hurt the 76ers. But you look at the Heat, with what they've done, no strangers to the play-in game. I have to agree with you, David. I think that is a game. I think whoever wins the 76ers and the Heat, whoever wins that game, I think can go on a run, because then they got the Knicks, and the Knicks are a really good team. But I could see the 76ers and the Heat possibly knocking them out in a best-of-7 series, especially if Embiid stays healthy. If the Heat are able to get to that playoff form that we've seen them the last couple of years, the experience that they have, I could see that being a first-round upset, knocking off the New York Knicks. So when you look at that play-in game, to me at least, that play-in game, the 76ers and the Heat, that is the one that has the most stakes riding.
You got it. Now here's a little history. If the Heat get by Philadelphia and they get that 7 seed, like we said, Miami versus New York. And let me tell you, that's bad blood way back to Pat Riley. That game, it does not matter. It's going to go 7 games. If it's going to go 7 games. I'm telling that right now. So just because Thibodeau used to work for the Pat Riley left New York for Miami, on and on and on. And I think the Knicks, over the course of like 15 years, has taken the Heat out when they're a higher seed, like a 2 or a 1 seed. So trust me, all the old stories are going to come back again for that one. So that's going to be down the road, obviously, but still, that will be must-watch TV.
Yeah, Jackson, you brought it up. I was going to bring it up myself. I think 76ers Heat is a huge play-in game because whoever loses that game, if they take down either Chicago or Atlanta, they've got to deal with Boston, of all teams. And I'm not saying that the Knicks aren't a good team because they're obviously the 2 seed, but comparing
anybody in the NBA to Boston.
No, I'm not comparing the Knicks to Boston. I'm comparing the Knicks to some of the teams like the 3, 4, 5 seeds. I think it's going to be a little bit easier for, say, Philadelphia or Miami, whoever wins that first play-in game. I think it's going to be a little bit easier for them if we saw the Bucks as the 2 seed or if we saw the Cavs as the 2 seed. I think it's going to be a little bit easier for a Miami Heat team to win a series against New York or a 76ers team to win a series against New York, as opposed to, I wouldn't say guaranteed against Milwaukee because obviously Antetokounmpo is dealing with the calf injury that he's dealing with, so we don't know how good Milwaukee's going to be in this postseason, but 76ers versus Heat, whoever wins that game is going to be set up to do a lot better in the postseason than whoever loses that game, because whoever loses that game, they obviously would have to deal with either Chicago or Atlanta. But then if they win that game, they've got a series against Boston to deal with. And Boston has been insanely good all season long. And Boston's obviously going to have a majority of home games. They've only lost 4 home games so far throughout the entire season. So, to me, I think 76ers Heat, whoever wins that first play-in game, that 7 versus 8 play-in game, they set themselves up for a way better chance at a playoff run than the loser of the game between the 76ers and the Heat.
David, we invite you to stay with us. We do have to take a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about the first round and some of the seeding for both the Western and the Eastern Conference. We'll continue our talk about the Celtics, Giannis's injury. Can the Pacers pull that upset the New York Knicks? We're also talking the Western side, the Oklahoma City Thunder getting the 1 seed, the Nuggets getting the 2 seed. What is better? Who would you rather face if you're a play-in team? Would you rather face the Nuggets or would you rather face the Thunder? So lots to talk about. More NBA talk coming up next when we return.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers, like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs. And the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions. It's me. Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Back here on the TKDS Sports Network, Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington. We are joined right now with our friend David Marshall, Advanced NBA Scout. We're talking about the NBA playoffs. Just got done talking about the NBA play-in game. Now let's take a look at the first round. For the Eastern Conference, Celtics, the 1 seed. We'll see the Cavaliers, the 4 seed, play the 5 seed Magic. 3 seed Bucks will play the number 6 seed Pacers. 2 seed the Knicks. For the Western Conference, 1 seed Thunder, 2 seed Nuggets. We'll see the 3-seeded Timberwolves will play the 6-seeded Suns. The 4-seed Clippers will play the 5-seeded Mavericks. David, your thoughts on the first round. Are there any upsets that you think you could foreshadow for us?
Oh, the Pacers Bucks. That one's happening. The Pacers own Milwaukee this year. They didn't lose a game to them. And when I say they didn't lose a game, it wasn't close. The Bucks can't control the pace, nothing. And Giannis is out. So if they get 0-2 to the Pacers, they're not coming back to Milwaukee. So they better hope. If I'm Milwaukee, man, we got to get a split just to get back home. And because that's the one. I don't think it's going to be upset. Anybody in the NBA says, no, that won't be an upset. They can't match up. That's where Drew Holiday not being there is glaring. Because Dame Lillard is not defending Halliburton. It's just not happening. He can't stop him in transition. He can't control him off the ball screen in half court. He is a problem for them. And once he gets going downhill, Halliburton's just an amazing passer. He's got tremendous finishers now. And Ojanovi's playing. Oh, my goodness. It's a problem. It's a problem. I can see the Mavericks popping, and it won't be much of an upset, but the Mavericks popping the Clippers just because Kawhi Leonard's not playing. And his knees hurt. So you got to say to yourself, okay, it's sitting good. And then Minnesota and Phoenix. Phoenix is playing so good, man. Like, they're playing really, really good. And I can see them just rolling. Because they're a veteran team. KD knows how to win championships. So he's won 2 for a reason. So he knows how to control the game. He knows where to get to his spots and scores. So watch. He'll put up amazing numbers. He'll probably shoot 26. His most shots in that playoff in one game is going to be, I'm going to tell you right, 22, 23. And he'll be so efficient. 38, get to the line 12 times a game. It's going to be an issue. And Minnesota's young, so they just don't know. I can see OKC winning, so guys, it won't be upset, just so you know. I'll see OKC coming out of the first round.
David, I'd probably have to agree with you, especially, going back to that Pacers and going back to the Pacers and Bucks matchup. You look at those two teams. As you mentioned, the Pacers own the Bucks in the regular season. And again, Giannis, he's out. Giannis is out. So that opens up the door for the Indiana Pacers. Another upset we talked about in the play-in segment, whoever wins that play-in game between the 76ers and the Heat going up against the Knicks, I think they could circle that. David, you talked about possible late run for the Dallas Mavericks. I think that's completely within the picture. Don't ever count out the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns, they're the 6th seed, but they were a team that was playing in the NBA Finals a couple of years ago. This is a team that is, you have a lot of great players on that team. You have Devin Booker, you have Kevin Durant, a lot of star-studded talent on the Phoenix Suns that could ultimately, that talent, if they could continue to gel and play their best basketball, it could propel you forward. And, going back, I'm going to try to make a point here, and David, let me know your thoughts on this. When you look at the NBA, say, just over the last couple of years, especially a decade ago, you could already sense that there were two pretty much unanimous picks, that one on the Western Conference, one on the Eastern Conference, that are going to match up for the NBA Finals. It was unanimous over the last couple of years. But now and even just going back a decade ago, now you look at both sides, and obviously the Eastern Conference is a little tricky because you have the Boston Celtics. I don't think that anybody's going to be able to take out the Boston Celtics, but you look ultimately between 2 through 7, or 2 through 8 for that matter, and they all match up really well with each other. Then on the Western side of the conference, Western side of the bracket, I truly do believe that you can make a legit, and I said this last week on the show, you can make a legitimate argument 1 through 10 on who is going to win the Western Conference and punch their ticket to the NBA Finals. The 10 seeds Golden State Warriors. This is a dynasty. Chris Paul's returning. This is a team that has a lot of, they have the shooters. They have Klay Thompson. They have Steph Curry. And then you look at the Pelicans, and the Pelicans, a tremendous roster surrounding them. The Lakers have all the star-studded talent, already won the in-season tournament this season. We talked about the Suns. We talked about the Mavericks. We've talked about the Thunder, such a young, quality team to watch. The Nuggets are your reigning NBA final champions, NBA champions. There is just a lot. The Clippers, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, just such an incredible team out in Los Angeles with the Clippers. There is a lot of competition, and I think that this NBA tournament, this NBA playoffs for 2024, to me, I think we will see the most upsets and the most competition, the most Game 7s than we've seen in quite a long time.
So what are we saying here, guys? How many lower seeds are going to win the first round?
Oh boy,
I'll have to count it up real quick.
Lower seeds winning first round. I could see.
We're not counting play-ins, though. Not counting play-ins.
I could see the Suns, Pacers, Mavericks. To be honest, if we see Golden State go all the way to be that 8th seed and play Oklahoma City, I'm not saying it's guaranteed that we're going to see them upset OKC, but I mean, I wouldn't see it out of the realm of possibility that if
you wouldn't be shocked, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Really? I wouldn't say it's impossible. But
I wouldn't be shocked. I'm calling right now Suns over the Timberwolves. I'm calling that.
I could see that.
I'm calling the Pacers over the Bucks, and I'm calling. I think that the Heat's going to make their way to face the Knicks, and I think that the Heat's going to knock out the Knicks. So right there are 3 first-round upsets. I think the Cavs are going to take down the Magic. Whoever plays Celtics. Have fun. You're going home early. I think the Celtics are going to win. I could see the Warriors again beating the Thunder. So if we want to count that as a half one, I'm on the fence about that one. I'm looking at 3 to 4 upsets from lower seeds in round number 1. And you look at round number 1, there's 8 matchups. There's going to be 8 matchups, and we're talking about half or just below half possibly being upsets.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I would say.
So was that 4? Is that 4? I counted 4.
I'll go 4. I'll go 4.
For me, I would say.
I'll go high.
Yeah, I would say Pacers. I think that's almost a lock for an upset.
Yeah.
I think if we see the Heat take down the 76ers, I could see them knocking out the Knicks. I would say Suns taking down Timberwolves. I would say. You can argue this is an upset, but it's 1 game split between the two at the end of the regular season. I think Mavericks can take down the Clippers. I think that's possible. I would say it's possible for Golden. I would say the only team that I think making a run through the play-in that can knock out OKC would be Golden State, because you talked about their last 10 games. They're 10 of 12 in their last 12 games, and they've only lost by, I think, 7 points combined in their 2 losses. So Golden State is playing phenomenal. Then you add Chris Paul into the mix. This Golden State team, if they take down Sacramento and if they take down whether it be New Orleans or the Lakers, whoever it ends up being who loses that 7 versus 8, you're talking a team that is 12-2 with a combined 7 or so points in their 2 losses in their last 14 games. And then you've got a very young OKC team that, if all goes right, can make a deep run, but inexperience could play a factor. I'm not saying it's going to, but I think I'm with Jackson on that half and half on whether or not we see OKC move on. So to me, I've got Dallas winning. I've got Suns. I've got Pacers. I've got, if it's the Heat against the Knicks, I think the Heat can take down New York. So for me, I think I'm at 4.5, if you want to call it that, because I'm still in the air on OKC on whether or not they move on to the second round. Because like I said, If it's Sacramento, we see play Oklahoma City, I think Oklahoma City can get it done. If we see loser of Pelicans Lakers play OKC, I think OKC gets it done. I would say the only team I could see potentially doing it would be Golden State, but I'm still on the fence on whether or not that even happens. I think Celtics are almost a lock. I think Cavs are going to get it done. I think Nuggets are going to get it done. Outside of those three, Celtics, Nuggets, Cavs, that's where I start thinking upsets are going to start happening. So I'd say I'm around 4 to 5 upsets in the first round.
Yeah, I'm staying at 4. I'm okay with that. I think that's a good number. It's going to be good basketball. I can't wait to watch you in about an hour or so.
Well, David, certainly we know that you have to. We know that you have dinner that you have made.
I tell you what, guys, it's been a blast, man. I've got everything done. I'm excited. Wife's coming home. Food's gonna be ready. Fettuccine a little salty, so I hope some people listening can give me some tips. I think the butter that I use, I forgot I should use unsalted butter, and I use Irish butter. And I think that added to the being very salty. So other than that, I'm starving, guys. Sorry.
Well, David, we'll let you get going to eat your dinner and enjoy some playing basketball coming tonight. Once again, thank you for your time, and we're hopefully talk to you later in the week or next week.
It's always been my pleasure, guys. Take care, Matt. Take care, Jackson.
Once again, that is David Marshall, advanced NBA scout and TKDS sports broadcaster. We'll be back. We'll talk about the Masters coming up next here on Sports Now.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We love serving families our real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers, like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs. And the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger-Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington. We welcome you back to Sports Now here on the TKDS Sports Network. We just got on the phone with David Marshall. The NBA play-in game starting tonight. The playoff will follow as well. Matt, absolutely love talking to David. A good friend of ours here with TKDS Sports Network. Good friend. He's helped us out a lot. He's been able to bring on some great guests, and he's a great guest in his own. And, you know, we've always said that Matt, you and I, we have some knowledge on the NBA, but nothing comparable to David Marshall. I mean, that's one of his many titles, is he's an advanced NBA scout. So obviously, he should know more about the NBA than we do.
I would hope so.
It's if he didn't, then that would be
odd.
That'd be very odd, but no. So we want to thank David for his time and all the effort that he gives to us and all the effort that he puts into the show. Certainly doesn't go unnoticed. Matt, let's talk about the Masters. The Masters, Scheffler wins his second Masters tournament, his second green jacket in the previous 3 years. A very, very hard feat, but Scheffler able to do it, winning by 4 strokes.
And yeah, to me, the bigger, I would say, and it's not that much of a shock, but it's the fact that we saw Scheffler go 11 under, and then we saw 7 under, and then a bunch at 4 under. Usually, when it comes to tournaments, when it comes to golf, you got, if there's a split between the leader, then there's a lot of close competition for second directly behind. But there was a decent gap between a lot of the golfers towards the top of the tables. And then we saw, as we continue to move down, a few 2 under. We had one go 1 under, and then a couple sitting even throughout all 4 rounds. But yeah, you take a look at both Scheffler going into the final round and some of the competition he had that he was dealing with going into the final round. It was pretty close. You had him sitting 7 under going into the final round. You had a couple pretty close. Homa was 5 under. It was very close, the competition. And then Scheffler pretty much did Scheffler things in the 4th round. We saw him have a similar run when he won it in his first run through. He ended up beating McIlroy by 3 in his first Masters title. So going back to Scheffler and going back to what he's been able to do, you take a look, McIlroy, when he was able to come back, I mean, McIlroy, when we saw him finish second to Scheffler, absolutely stormed his way back in round 4, but it wasn't quite enough to take down Scheffler, and Scheffler ended up going 1 under in round 4 back in his first Masters win. So at the end of the day, Scottie Scheffler did Scottie Scheffler things when it came to the final round, did what he needed to do to win the Masters. It was enough. I mean, like I said, it was closer competition when it came down to how close everybody was going into the 4th round. There was 4 golfers within 3 of each other. Well, no, 5 golfers within 3 of each other. And at the end of the day, we see Scheffler end up winning it by 4. When it comes down to it, like I said, that's Scottie Scheffler doing Scottie Scheffler things when it comes down to having a slight advantage going into the final round. You take a look at his first Masters. He had a few stroke lead on Cameron Smith, and then it ended up pretty much sitting similar, but Smith dropped back a few. McIlroy's the one who absolutely shot out of a cannon in round 4 to make it close, but it was still Scheffler who ended up winning it back in his first Masters title. And then, like I said, it was somewhat similar the way it played out this past Masters that we just saw, because you saw very close competition, but in round 4, when it was needed, Scheffler down the line golfed the way we usually see him do when he wins a title, and he just shot out of a cannon in that last round. I mean, started off sitting 7 under, jumped to 8 under, then went back to 7 under, dropped down to 6 under, and that was when it started getting close. But once he hit 6 under, he shot out of a cannon. In 3 holes after going 6 under, he jumped to 9 under, then dropped back down to 8, and then down the stretch, shot back out of the cannon that I talk about when it comes to Scheffler, and sat at 11 under once all was said and done. So round 4, pretty dominant for Scheffler, because like I said, he was only 1 ahead of the guy trailing him going into round 4. Ended up, the guy I'm talking about, who was 6 under, 1 behind Scheffler going into round 4, ended up finishing 4 under. So he absolutely dominated in round 4 and ended up getting his second Masters title in 3 years.
And you mentioned his second Masters title in the last 3 years, and he's the first player to do that ever since Bubba Watson did that back in 2012 and 2014. Bubba Watson was the last one to do that. He became the 18th man to do so. So Scheffler, a young golfer who has certainly started to make a name for himself. And when you look at what Scheffler has done, I've seen some stuff roaming around on Twitter about where his rank is all time. And although he's a young golfer, he has not, I don't want to say that he's necessarily reached his peak, but I mean, with the numbers that he's been putting up right now, it wouldn't surprise me if we do see him wearing the green jacket at the top of the Masters once again a couple more times in his career. And with that being said, golf is different in a sense because there's so many different locations, obviously. I mean, it's a year-round sport. When it's cold up north, you go down south, you play all over the world. And there are some courses that that golfers will play that just simply they are terrible at, which simply probably every course I play. But, when
you said it, not me.
Yes. But when there's certain courses that golfers love playing at, and they do really well there. And Scottie Scheffler has proven that Augusta is one of those courses that he does really well at. Whereas there's other courses that you're go play at as a golfer, and it seems like you just can't necessarily shake one hole. There's one hole that always gives you problems, or there's a span of holes that just gives you problems, and that's where you golf your worst tournaments. So seeing Scheffler now winning 2 out of the last 3 years, he has become familiar with Augusta. He has become familiar with it. He plays it really well, and again, winning this year by 4 strokes is pretty much unheard of. That's a wide range, but Scheffler was able to do it. So when you look at what Scheffler's done in the Masters, a young guy who's won it now 2 out of the last 3 years, won this year pretty big. Again, he plays Augusta well. He's going to be back in the Masters, and it wouldn't surprise me here in the next couple of years we see him wearing at least one more, if not a couple more green jackets as well.
And yeah, I'm not saying it's going to be, and you talk about Scheffler, the fact that he's won 2 of the last 3. I'm not saying it's guaranteed that we're going to see him win a 3rd Masters, but I mean, you talk about the names that he's been able to get on the list with when it comes to winning his 2nd Masters. I wouldn't see it being out of the realm of possibility that we see him be only the 6th player. Well, there's more than 6 players that have won 3, but there's only currently 5 players on the list that have won 3 Masters titles. You've obviously got Palmer, Woods, and Nicklaus, who have all gotten more than 3. They go from Jack Nicklaus, who has 6, you have Tiger Woods, who has 5, and then you have Arnold Palmer, who has 4, and then you've got that list of players who have 3. Phil Mickelson's one of the players that's on that list, Sam Snead as well. Gary Player's also on that list. So you've got those players and you have those golfers that have 3 Masters titles. If Scheffler can keep playing at Augusta the way we've seen him play at Augusta in recent years, I mean, it's possible Scheffler doesn't end up winning another Masters title. That's very possible because the competition in golf, it's insane. The level of competition you see at the top end of golfing, but if we see Scottie Scheffler play at the level we've seen him play at in the last few times we've seen him in Augusta, don't be surprised if we see him end up winning 3 or 4 Masters titles. To say he's going to get up to the upper echelon and get up with Jack Nicklaus and then up with Tiger Woods in the 5 and 6 total Masters won, it's tough to say because golfers like Arnold Palmer, golfers like Tiger Woods, golfers like Jack Nicklaus, those are few and far between. Very rarely will you see golfers hit that level. Is it possible for Scheffler to do it at the Masters? It is totally possible. Is it going to happen? Who knows? We're going to need to wait and see because he's only gotten 2 in the past 3. But like you said, the fact that he's only 27 years old, it's totally possible we could see Scheffler continue to win at the Masters. But like I said, with the level of competition you see go to Augusta every single season, that's why when you've got players like Arnold Palmer who have 4 Masters titles, when you have players like Tiger Woods who have 5, when you see and you go down the list and you have Nicklaus at 6, the only person with 6, you have Woods at 5, the only person with 5, and Palmer with 4, the only person with 4. The Masters is one of the toughest golfing tournaments to win, hands down. There's no other way of putting it. So if Scheffler ends up joining the ranks of some of the players that I just mentioned who have 3 Masters titles, you already end up cementing yourself as one of the best golfers to ever go out on a golf course if you end up winning 3 Masters, because there are very few names, very few. You're going to be in a group of, you would essentially be the 9th golfer in history to win 3 Masters titles. So is it possible for Scheffler? It is. Is it going to happen? Who knows? We're going to have to wait and see because, like I said, when it comes to the Masters, it's one of the toughest tournaments to win in all of golf. So for him to have 2, that's already huge in and of itself. To win that green jacket twice is already huge. For Scheffler, is it possible to see 3? Yes. Will we see it? Who knows, because the competition level at the Masters is insane every single season.
Time for a break. With that being said, congratulations, Scottie Scheffler, who is wearing the green jacket once again. We'll be back on Sports Now. Final segment upcoming. We got about 10 minutes or so left in this show. We'll be back. More Sports Now to come.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Families are real family recipes, made fresh with quality ingredients. And we love helping families find ways to stretch a buck. You see, we've always been about value, with coupons and money-saving offers, like the free pizzas you get with our buddy cards, making it easier for families to share a meal and a laugh. With flavors so good, the only thing left are the crumbs. And the memories. La Rosa's, the real family pizzeria.
Whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Gather together with friends and family. It's Skyline time.
Being Friday, everyone's looking forward to the weekend. Skyline's a good way to kind of kick that off.
You smell the chili, you hear the crowd, and they're having a good time. Skyline Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays definitely happen as well.
We love it every time we go.
I'm thrilled to be at Wittenberg at this time and place, as the university is perfectly positioned to welcome an esports program like none other. Wittenberg's impressive athletics tradition and Tiger-Up spirit, mixed with a strong commitment to student success, will allow for a program that competes at the highest level while also caring deeply for each player, both personally and professionally. Esports at Wittenberg will not only be about gaming, but will also be about changing the game. Together, we will build a supportive, dynamic community as we bring our own distinct light to the global phenomenon of esports right here in Springfield, Ohio. It's time to Tiger Up. Let's go.
Every day, we find ourselves on a path full of decisions.
It's me.
Sometimes small and sometimes big. Sometimes alone and sometimes together. At McAfee, everything we do is done with your comfort, health, and convenience in mind. She always wanted the best for you, and now you can rest knowing you've provided the best for her. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington as we welcome you back to Sports Now. Just about 10 minutes or so left in this 2-hour show. Once again, glad you're with us. Thanks for spending your Tuesday with us here on the TKDS Sports Network. Wittenberg softball is going on the network right now as well. They're in a 2-game doubleheader against Ohio Wesleyan. Game 2 in the first inning is underway, so make sure after this show, jump on over and watch it on the channel as well. And if I'm not mistaken, Power Miss Boat Racing Show is back as well. They made their official season debut on the network last week, last Tuesday night at 8, I believe. Hopefully it'll return again tonight. Hosted by Ray Rada. Make sure to check that out as well. It's a great show. Wonderful show, especially if you're into motorsports and especially boat racing in general. And if you're not into boat racing, go check it out because it's certainly a fun time. But Matt, let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. Kind of alluding to our talk, what we're going to have tomorrow. We're going to talk about we're going to have to talk a lot about the NFL tomorrow. What Joe Burrow said about taunting during the New Heights podcast, the live podcast at UC Fifth Third Arena. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll talk about players that are back in the building. We'll talk about draft needs as we're about what would you say, 9 days away from the NFL draft. So we're certainly getting close. We're talking about all that, a big show coming up tomorrow, but kind of continuing on to our conversation about what we had Friday surrounding Bengals star wide receiver T. Higgins. T. Higgins, it was a report that Jeremy Fowler from ESPN posted saying that the Bengals have no plans to trade T. Higgins. They are wanting to make another Super Bowl run. T. Higgins then spoke to the media and said that he does not anticipate playing anywhere else for this upcoming season. So just as we all said, again, there were a lot of reports that came out later in the week last week. Matt, you and I talked about it on the show, that the Bengals have not engaged in any contract talks with T. Higgins since the franchise tag was put in place back in early March. Now, that was getting a lot of speculation on whether or not T. Higgins was going to be traded before the draft, during the draft, whether or not he was going to be traded at all, whether or not he was going to hold out. This pretty much clears everything up, that the Bengals are going to be moving forward with T. Higgins, at least for his franchise tag year. Beyond that, we don't know. But it looks more and more likely that a lot of those rumors that we saw last week on the show, or that we announced last week on the show, are now being cleared up, that T. Higgins will be in stripes for the 2024 season.
And yeah, like we were talking about last week when we brought up the whole T. Higgins speculation and all the rumors that were going on when it came to the Pittsburgh Steelers trying to acquire him. At the end of the day, like I said, and I talked about it last week when we talked about this, I don't think there's any, and obviously it came out that there isn't going to be, but at that time I brought up that I don't foresee there being any movement when it comes to T. Higgins, especially T. Higgins going to another AFC North team at the end of the day. So hearing that T. Higgins is going to be in a Bengals uniform this upcoming season, and there's really no room and there's really no talking and conversation in Cincinnati that T. Higgins could be traded, to me, not surprising at the end of the day. Because like I said, if we were to see a trade between any team in the AFC North for T. Higgins, the Bengals better fleece whatever team they're trading T. Higgins away to. And now that we're seeing that there's no real possibility that we're going to see T. Higgins traded to another team, and that the Bengals are looking to keep T. Higgins on a potential Super Bowl run this upcoming season, not surprising to me in the slightest at the end of the day, because to me, the way I see T. Higgins in Cincinnati, I see him playing out this season, and I wouldn't say it's completely out of the realm of possibility to see him go elsewhere, but that's after this upcoming season. If T. Higgins is going to go anywhere, we're going to see it happening after this upcoming season, because at the end of the day, we talk about how much the Cincinnati Bengals just paid Joe Burrow, how much they're going to have to fork up for a receiver like Jamar Chase. It's not impossible to see T. Higgins continue to play in Cincinnati after this upcoming season, but to me, it's a lot more likely and it's a lot more possible that we're going to see T. Higgins not on the roster after this upcoming season, as opposed to we're going to see him on the roster. Is it possible we see T. Higgins continue to be a Bengal after this upcoming year? Absolutely. Do I see it happening? And do I see it being 100%? There's no way, and there's no doubt in my mind T. Higgins stays with Cincinnati after this upcoming season. I would think you're wrong to say you guarantee he's going to be there. But is it possible he's still in Cincinnati? Absolutely, because at the end of the day, you talk about, obviously, the Players Association, the grading and the report card for each teams. There was a lot to be desired and a lot of improvements that you could see in Cincinnati, but the atmosphere for the team, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of places that players are wanting to go play football, and I think Cincinnati, with the atmosphere and the energy, especially that the crowd brings to games, I wouldn't see why players wouldn't want to be playing in Cincinnati right now.
And let's talk about T. Higgins real quick. And really what's looming on the market is what Jamar Chase is going to do. And it wouldn't surprise me if Jamar Chase, we mentioned once a franchise tag was slapped on T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, it wouldn't surprise me if they're going to start to negotiate his contract heading into next season, maybe the year after. But we're going to start these talks with Jamar Chase within the next offseason or two to talk ultimately about what because he's going to be entering year 4 this season. Now, He does have that first round pick, 5th-year option on his contract, so the Bengals will pick that up. But it wouldn't shock me to see them try to sign him at least before that fifth-year contract takes into account, which lines up with T. Higgins' contract next season. So Matt, when you look at bundling Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, it is going to be a more expensive deal than what the Philadelphia Eagles are doing. The Eagles, they just signed Devonta Smith, 3 years, $51 million over the weekend. You pair him with A.J. Brown, who's making $25 million a year. And Matt, what's 51 divided by 3?
51 about 17 a year.
17 a year. So you have $42 million a year going to your 2 receivers. Now, you look at the Bengals. Jamar Chase is going to make 30 plus. T. Higgins, in my opinion, I think that this is my opinion, I think T. Higgins is better than Devonta Smith. So if Smith's making 17, I would bank on Higgins looking to get 20 to 25. So when you look at it, we'll go high end, we'll go 25 for Higgins, 30 for Chase. That's $55 million you're spending on 2 wide receivers.
After you just paid Joe Burrow.
Now, I will say this. It looks like, and if I'm not mistaken, Burrow's contract was a lot back-end heavy, which opens up this window for the Bengals to possibly make some signings. But what's going to suffer? Here's the problem that the Bengals are running into right now. You are running into wanting to pay your offense, and then on the defensive side, you're going to have to rely on drafting. And this is frankly a team that has not drafted well. But, hey, a lot of decisions to be made. We'll talk about more of this tomorrow. And alongside Matthew Pennington, our producer, Kevin Fowler, I'm Jackson Lightcap. Thanks for joining us. The Sports Now, we're live tomorrow, 4 to 6. Thanks for dealing with us. We'll talk to you then.